Let me start with something uncomfortable, and a lot of you are not going to like this. Some of you are not ambitious. You're afraid of being irrelevant. And I say that with love because God knows I've been there. There was a version of me, especially in corporate, who didn't just want to be good. I wanted to be seen, respected, valued, indispensable. I wanted to be so relevant that I basically screamed it everywhere. Performance reviews, extra projects, overfunctioning in meetings, being the one who could handle just one more thing. And underneath that, shame. Because if I slowed down, if I wasn't exceptional, if I wasn't achieving, who was I? And then there's this other group of you. You are ambitious. You have ideas and vision and capacity, but you keep abandoning yourself to prove that you are. And that is where ambition turns into poison. Burnout, broken relationships, subtle addictions to keep up, like caffeine, alcohol, validation, adrenaline, sometimes even drugs. Look at industries like high performance or corporate law. The substance use, the normalized exhaustion, the badge of honor for surviving 80-hour weeks. There's research on this, by the way. Studies show that professionals in high pressure industries have significantly higher rates of substance use and mental health issues compared to the general population. Not loving this for y'all. Lawyers, for example, have some of the highest rates of depression and alcohol dependency of any profession. Not because they're weak. You'll find out in another episode coming up soon that they are not, since I'm diving into something awesome with a lawyer there. But because the system rewards self abandonment. If your ambition requires you to betray yourself, it's not ambition, it's addiction. And today, we're talking about the difference. We've been sold a very specific story. Hustle culture tells us more effort equals more worth. The strong, independent woman narrative tells us handle everything, need nothing, and be impressive. You get praised for overfunctioning, admired for how much you can carry, celebrated for how resilient you are. Nobody asks, at what cost? Here's the lie: the world rewards self abandonment if it produces results. Because, yes, you may get the promotion, the launch may succeed, the numbers may look good, but internally, your nervous system is in complete overdrive. Your body is whispering before it starts screaming. Your relationships, they feel transactional, and you are constantly bracing. Self abandonment can look high performing. It looks like these things here, like saying yes when exhausted, launching when your body says no, staying in spaces and jobs that feel off because this is good for my network, dating someone who feels like stress but looks like potential. Relational ambition is real. Sometimes you don't stay because it feels safe. You stay because it fits the vision. That's not love. That's not work. That's strategy. And listen up, strategy is not always all that bad because you need a strategy to survive everything. But this strategy is a terrible replacement for safety. Let me give you a concrete example. I once stayed in a business partnership for almost a year longer than I should have. Not because it was working, but because I had told people about it, because I had invested time, because walking away felt like a failure that I was never going to come back from. And the entire time, yes, like the whole year, my body was telling me something was wrong. Like a tight chest during our calls, sweaty palms and armpits the whole time. I was dreading our meetings big time. I was feeling drained after every interaction. But I kept going because in my mind, quitting it just meant I wasn't ambitious enough. Turns out Staying was self abandonment. And the moment I finally ended it, I could breathe. And I literally felt my shoulders drop. And that's the thing about misaligned ambition. It doesn't feel like growth, it feels like holding your breath. Now we're going deeper. Psychologically speaking, self abandonment is often rooted in attachment wounds and performance based validation. When love or safety felt conditional in childhood, like on things like being good and smart and calm and useful, a lot of the things that I had to deal with as well as maybe you are, I'm pretty sure. The nervous system learns I'm safest when I perform. That wiring doesn't disappear when you become successful. It just gets rewarded. And here's where it gets interesting. There's a concept in psychology called adaptive strategies. These are behaviors you developed to stay safe in environments that were not safe. Being hyper capable, over functioning, never needing any help. You recognize these, right? Those were survival strategies. And they worked. They got you praise, approval, safety. But here's the problem: what worked then doesn't serve you now. And your nervous system hasn't updated the software just yet. So you're still running on survival mode, even when there's no threat. Self abandonment can look like calling it discipline when it's actually self neglect, or overcommitting because being capable is your identity, or being the calm, composed leader while suppressing your anger. It just feels dangerous. Or avoiding rest because stillness makes you anxious. That's not drive. That's a dysregulated nervous system. And here's what happens psychologically: chronic stress elevates cortisol, and elevated cortisol over time impacts your sleep quality. So, you might jump from 8-hour nights to 5-hour nights. It really touches your immune function. So, you could be sick more often. Your digestion gets all fudged up. Huge hormonal imbalance. And definitely for the ladies, this is an important one because it really influences us. Your cognitive function might suckety suck a little, and your emotional regulation, it's also not as good. And this isn't woo woo. This is documented science. The hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, your HPA, so your body's stress response system basically, gets stuck in overdrive. And when that happens, your body stops differentiating between real threats and perceived threats. A deadline can feel like a tiger. A critical email feels like danger, and your system responds accordingly. High functioning women are especially good at self abandonment. We call it ambition. While our stress receptors are in overdrive, we're still answering emails. We're still doing all the things that everything asks from us. And eventually, the body collects its debt. I've been there, babe. The headaches, the tight jaw, the inability to relax, even when nothing urgent is happening. And a subtle fear: if I stop, will everything fall apart? That's not ambition, that's survival. Another subtle one: staying in partnerships, business or romantic, because we've invested so much already. That's called the sunk cost fallacy. We've talked about this phenomenon in a previous episode. Psychologically, we're wired to double down on investments to avoid the pain of loss. It's a cognitive bias where we continue investing in something because we've already invested so much, even when the evidence clearly shows it's not working. Economists call this throwing good money after bad. But in relationships and business, we do it with time, energy, and emotional labor. And here's the kicker: staying in something draining doesn't make you loyal, it makes you exhausted. I want to pause here and say something important. If you're listening to this and thinking, oh my God, that's me, first of all, You're not broken. Second of all, this is a learned behavior, which means it can be unlearned. You don't have to be a high functioning burnout case for the rest of your life. But you do have to get honest about what is actually driving you. Is it ambition or is it the fear of being irrelevant, unwanted, or insufficient? Because those are two very different engines and they produce very different outcomes. Let's shift the tone because I don't want this to be just doom and gloom. Aligned ambition exists and it feels different in the body. Aligned ambition feels like expansion without panic, stretch without collapse. Like you're a rubber band and it just gets rest when you need it. It's challenge without self betrayal. Psychologically, this happens when growth is paired with regulation. You can feel discomfort, but not threat. You can feel effort, but not abandonment. There's a concept in neuroscience called the window of tolerance. It's the zone where you can handle stress, challenge, and growth without going into fight or flight or shutdown. When you're operating inside your window of tolerance, you can think way more clearly. You can make the actual right decisions. You can tolerate discomfort and you can actually stay present within yourself, with others, all that stuff. And when you're operating outside of your window of tolerance, everything basically feels like a crisis. You're reactive, you're rigid or collapsed. You can't access your higher brain functions like normal people should. And aligned ambition keeps you inside your window. Addictive ambition pushes you outside of it repeatedly. And the more time you spend outside of your window of tolerance, the narrower it gets, which is why burnout gets worse and worse over time. You might even get burnt out two or three times in a row because you're not listening to the signs and you're in the wrong place. Your capacity for stress actually shrinks. Aligned ambition is building something because you love it, not because you need it to validate you. There's a big difference between I want this and I need this to prove that I matter. Aligned ambition makes you tired. Misaligned ambition makes you hollow. That's the test. If you're building something and it exhausts you, like physically, but it nourishes you emotionally, that's growth. If you're achieving and feeling emptier each milestone, that's addiction. I'll give you an example from my own life. When I first started the club and with Jen, I was terrified. Terrified no one would join, terrified I wasn't qualified, terrified I'd fail publicly. But when I was actually in the work, building the structure, hosting sessions, connecting with members, I felt alive. Nervous? Yes. Stretched? Absolutely. But also deeply aligned. Contrast that with some of the corporate projects I worked on. Projects where I was objectively successful, like really good at my job, projects that looked impressive on paper, but internally, I felt nothing. Or worse, I felt dread. And that's the difference. Aligned ambition energizes you even when it's hard. Misaligned ambition drains you when even when it's successful. And if this is resonating, share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. Because so many high performers don't realize they're running on survival wiring. They think they're just driven when actually they're dysregulated. Now, let's get practical because ambition is not the enemy. Self abandonment is. Here's what building differently looks like. I'll give you like 5 pointers that you can hang on to, and I want them to be there for you, okay? So, my first one is check with your body before you're saying yes. Before I commit to anything now, an event, a collaboration, a project, I pause. Not mentally, but physically. Do I feel open or tight, excited or braced? Your body knows before your calendar does. There's something called somatic intelligence, the body's ability to read your signals and, use them as information. And it's one of the most underrated self leadership skills because your body is always telling you the truth. Your mind can rationalize anything, but your body, it doesn't lie. If your chest tightens when you think about a commitment, that's data. If your shoulders drop when you imagine saying no, that's also data. Listen to it. The second one is ask yourself, am I proving something or building something? When I used to overcommit in corporate, it was proving I was competent, proving I deserved my seat, proving I wasn't an imposter. Now, if it's proving, it's a big fat no because proving is exhausting and it's never enough. I will never be enough for the wrong people. You prove yourself once and then you have to prove yourself again. It's a hamster wheel. Building is different. Building is additive. Each thing you create adds to the foundation. It compounds. It doesn't disappear the moment that you stop performing. The third one is remove at least one draining thing every quarter. And this sounds intense, but one client, one obligation, one meeting, one dynamic. Growth isn't just addition, it's also subtraction. And this one is hard for the high achievers because we're taught that success is about doing more. But actually, the most successful people I know are ruthless about what they don't do, and they're ruthless about their time and planning. Warren Buffett famously said the difference between successful people and really successful people is that really successful people say no to almost everything. And he's right, because every yes to something draining is a no to something aligned. The fourth one, let people be disappointed. And this one changed my life. Regulated ambition, it requires tolerating other people's discomfort. And I still have a lot of negative thoughts even when I have to speak it out loud. I mean, you just heard it now and I'm still stuttering all over the place. Okay, you are not responsible for managing everyone's emotional reaction to your boundaries. Read that again. You are not responsible for managing everyone's emotional reaction to your boundaries. When you start saying no, people will be disappointed. They'll be confused. They might even be upset because they're used to the version of you who says yes. But here's the thing, their discomfort is not your emergency. And the people who truly respect you, they'll adjust or they will at least understand. The people who don't, they were benefiting from your self abandonment. And those are not your people. Might it be family, jobs, or other types of relationships? Okay. And the fifth one, rest before collapse. Rest when things are going well. Rest when you could push. Rest when you're ahead. Because collapse rest is trauma rest. Preventative rest is self leadership, kind of like my monthly mental health day. And there's a huge difference. Collapse rest is reactive. It happens when your body forces you to stop because you've ignored every signal. Preventative rest is strategic. It happens because you understand that rest is productive. Rest is where integration happens, like when you're sleeping well. Rest is where your nervous system recalibrates, like with a nice social day or a mental health day that you desperately need. Rest is where creativity emerges. But our culture treats rest like laziness. And that's one of the most toxic beliefs we've inherited. The future of leadership isn't less ambition, it's regulated ambition. Ambition with a nervous system that feels safe. Ambition that doesn't require you to disappear. You don't need to shrink your ambition because I do want you to reach for the stars. You are worth it. You need to stop sacrificing yourself to it. That's the whole thing. And you don't need to want less. I want you to want more of the good stuff for you, more rest for you, more amazing experiences for you. But you need to abandon yourself less. If your success costs you your nervous system, your softness, or your integrity, it's too expensive. And if this episode hits something, share it. Send it to the high functioning friend who says she's fine. Send it to the founder who's building something beautiful but feels hollow inside. Send it to the person who's afraid that slowing down means giving up. Because we're not here to hustle ourselves into oblivion. We're here to build something meaningful and stay whole while doing it. If you want to build ambition differently, in places where performance isn't the price of belonging, come network with us. Come sit in spaces where regulation, depth, and real conversations are normal. Join us at our events, or step into the premium club if you're ready to build with intention instead of addiction. Because here's what I know: the most powerful thing you can do as a leader, as a founder, as a human, as a parent, as a partner is to hold ambition and softness at the same time. And you can learn that. Not one or the other, you can do both. And when you do that, you don't just build a business, you build a life. I'll see you next time, okay? Be nice to yourself.